Although crude by today's standards, The Lost World was the feature that secured Willis O'Brien's career and indirectly led to King Kong. You know what? I think we need to discuss this issue. Over 100 years ago, in 1912, Sherlock Holmes creator Sir Arthur Conan Doyle released a novel called The Lost World onto bookshelves. It became a massive bestseller at the time, and given the rise of motion pictures, it was pretty much worthy to be a movie. And so in 1925, the first film adaptation of The Lost World hit the big screen. Directed by Harry Hoyt, and with stop-motion creature effects by the legendary Willis O'Brien, the film told the story of Professor Challenger, who leads an expedition into South America to a plateau that is said to be populated by dinosaurs, which leads to them capturing a brontosaurus and bringing it back to civilization, where of course, things go wrong. And to this day, the film itself is considered an all-time classic. In fact, in some areas, it started the dinosaur genre of movies. And given there have been many other adaptations of the book, they still don't live up to the level of the classic 1925 film. So the question I have to ask is, why hasn't Hollywood done a big-budget remake of Arthur Conan Doyle's novel? I mean, the book itself has great potential to be a big-budget dinosaur movie. Okay, now I know what you're thinking, guys. Steven Spielberg's The Lost World, isn't that considered the better remake? Well, you gotta think about it. That movie was not based on the Conan Doyle novel. It was based on the Michael Crichton novel of the same name. And while Spielberg did take elements from the Conan Doyle novel, it mostly stays true to the Crichton novel. So again, why hasn't Conan Doyle's novel been turned into a big-budget movie? Maybe it's due to the fact that the book is in some ways under public domain, and therefore so many studios can have a crack at doing an adaptation. But the reason other film adaptations fail in comparison is to one simple fact: the dinosaur effects. I mean, if you think about it, with all the adaptations out there, the dinosaur effects are pretty cheesy. Cheesy? I mean, you got the 1960s adaptation, which has lizards with glued frills and horns on their heads, which look awful, and in some areas downright animal cruelty. You got the 1990s film with John Rhys Davies, which unfortunately with the dinosaur effects, they ran out of money. No, seriously, I talked with John Rhys Davies and he said that they actually ran out of money to do the special effects. What kind of bullshit is that? And to be honest, the only one that comes faithful to the book and has some pretty decent dinosaur effects is the 1998 direct-to-video movie. And it was so obvious that it was cashing in on Steven Spielberg's The Lost World that they even used a giant-sized Jurassic Park raptor as the antagonist and on the VHS cover, which as a kid actually scared the crap out of me in the video store. And I know the 2001 version with Bob Hoskins as Professor Challenger is pretty decent on its own, but you gotta remember, that was a made-for-TV miniseries, not a feature film. Plus, the series was only made because BBC wanted to continue cashing in on the Walking with Dinosaurs series. But aside from that, there's never been a big-budget adaptation of this movie since the 1925 film. And in my opinion, not only does the Conan Doyle film deserve a film adaptation, but the 1925 film itself does definitely deserve a remake. I mean, if King Kong could get 2 or 3 remakes in a row, why not Conan Doyle's novel that started this whole genre? But with my show coming from more of a what-if scenario, the question is, who would I want to direct, produce, and star in the movie? Well, if I had to choose who was going to produce the film, I think I'd give the rights to either MGM, Warner Brothers, or even 20th Century Fox, given that these studios haven't had their turn in directing a big-budget dinosaur flick. But if I was a sucker, I'd probably choose Universal just for the hell of it. So we have our production team down. Now what about directing? Well, while we can all wish for Steven Spielberg or Peter Jackson to direct a Lost World adaptation, they pretty much had their share with dinosaur movies in the past, so we want to give it to somebody different. And the film should not only be a classic Hollywood special effects adventure, but also a genuine horror film and make the dinosaurs scary. Well, the more I think about it, given his popularity with thriller creature films, I'd probably have to go with Ridley Scott. I mean, yeah, sure, the guy is pretty well known for films like Alien, Robin Hood, and Gladiator, but his visual style and his work with practical creature effects could give the film a sense of awe, wonder, and mystery, as well as make the dinosaurs scary as fuck. Plus, it would be kinda cool to see Ridley's take on a prehistoric jungle environment. So I think overall he would be a great choice for directing. And then of course we have to talk about the cast. Who in today's world would be able to play these roles perfectly? Well, the first person I think we should try to cast is Professor Challenger. He's pretty much the heart and soul of the story, and he's an adventurous spirit, kinda like Carl Denham in the original Kong. Now, I will give credit where credit's due. If I had to pick the best person who played Professor Challenger in previous movies, it definitely has to go to John Rhys Davis. However, for the remake, I would probably have to pick Richard Armitage, better known for playing Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit trilogy. He definitely has the look of Professor Challenger, but also an adventurous spirit, and I gotta say, he would be pretty damn good for the part. Then of course there's the heroic character of Edward Malone. Now in the book and the 1925 film, he is very much a foppish and kind of cowardly reporter, but as the adventure goes on, he then ends up growing a pair of balls and actually becomes a decent action hero. In some areas, he's kinda like a young Ward in a Hammer horror film. And if I had to pick, I think I'd go with Kit Harington, better known for playing Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. He is a very unique actor, and I think this would be a good breakout role for him to get into movies. Unlike that film Pompeii, which flopped miserably, this would be a pretty good role for him to play. Now what about Professor Summerlee, the guy who denies the existence of dinosaurs? Well, I always saw this character as kind of a snooty know-it-all who thinks he's better than everyone else. And in terms of casting the character, for some reason I see Brad Dourif. I know that's a bit of a stretch, but he does kind of have the look of the character. Now putting the casting aside, who would do the special effects for the film? Well, I would probably do what they did in Jurassic Park with a mix of practical animatronic effects and CGI elements. I mean, every film has to use CGI nowadays. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking I'm going to choose between ILM or Weta Digital, but surprisingly, if I'm going to pick anybody to do the dinosaur visual effects, I'm probably going to go with Rising Sun Pictures. Yeah, you guys know, the effects company behind Game of Thrones and The Legend of Tarzan. I would love to see them tackle some really cool dinosaur effects and give their own spin on all the creatures. Speaking of which, that's another form of casting, picking which dinosaurs are going to be in the movie. Now, in the book and the 1925 film, you have your basic dinosaurs, the Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Brontosaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex, some pterodactyls, plesiosaurs, but there are other dinosaurs in the book that actually haven't really had a chance to shine in any feature film, like the Iguanodon, Allosaurus, Megalosaurus. All these dinosaurs would be great for the movie. Actually, probably the most iconic dinosaur in the 1925 film is the Agathaumas. I mean, that creature alone hasn't been seen since that film, so it'd be cool to bring him back for the remake. Plus, it would be cool to see a couple of great action sequences taken from the 1925 film. For example, the volcano scene where the dinosaurs stampede through the jungle, and even the rampage with the Brontosaurus. But given they'd probably want to make it like a Godzilla film, they'll probably go with a Tyrannosaurus or an Allosaurus for the finale. Although that was more replicated in the Steven Spielberg Michael Crichton version. But overall, guys, in terms of Hollywood doing a big budget remake of The Lost World, I'd say it has great potential. It's got all the classic elements of an action-adventure flick, it's got a ton of creatures to show off, and some interesting characters that they could take from the book and the 1925 film. I mean, if I was in the big leagues, I would definitely take the job. And I'd say overall, Hollywood has great potential to bring this story back from extinction. So that's my thoughts on Hollywood doing a big budget remake of The Lost World. Agree? Disagree? Or would you guys want to see a remake of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's classic? Let me know in the comment section below, along with any other subject you'd like me to talk about on this show. So until the next video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. This is BigJackFilms, signing off.